NunatuKavut Inuit have occupied and had a special relationship with the land, the ice and waters of our territory long before the arrival of Europeans.
Tonight, the NunatuKavut Community Council gathered in Ottawa to defend an MOU signed with the Government of Canada.
It's about reconciliation and decolonizing health.
Hundreds gathered in Winnipeg to discuss the direction of Indigenous health transformation.
The most important thing is, we want people to understand that what they're doing is having a positive effect.
And the Jim Brady Medal of Excellence is handed out in Saskatoon. Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News. The president of the NunatuKavut Community Council, or NCC, appeared in federal court in Ottawa to defend a memorandum of understanding signed with the federal government. NCC President Todd Russell held a press conference Thursday morning. The NCC represents about 6,000 people in southern Labrador who say they are Inuit. It signed a memorandum of understanding with the federal government in 2019 for the purpose of entering discussions regarding rights recognition and self-determination, and to support a land claim submission that overlaps Innu lands. On Tuesday, the Innu Nation and Indigenous leaders from Labrador and Quebec publicly declared that NCC members are not Indigenous and are asking the federal court to rule against the MOU. Russell says the allegations are false and an example of lateral violence.
It is particularly egregious when we hear such misinformation come from members of our own family, our relatives. NunatuKavut Inuit have occupied and had a special relationship with the land, the ice and waters of our territory long before the arrival of Europeans.
To Winnipeg now, where this week the Southern Chiefs Organization hosted a First Nations health gathering. Sierra Bettens has more on what some of the panelists spoke about.
In Winnipeg, hundreds gathered to discuss Indigenous health transformation at a Southern Chiefs Organization conference. One of the panels of the two-day conference focused on decolonizing mental health. A cross-section of experts agree colonialism has caused serious mental health issues among Indigenous people. Issues like violence and suicide.
That colonization process is one that's ongoing ever since that mind was developed. It's ongoing to this very day.
Ed Connors is a psychologist from Ganawake Mohawk Territory. He works with Indigenous youth on suicide prevention and life promotion.
The youth basically were saying to us, we're losing our culture, we're losing our ways, we're losing our teachings, we're losing our languages. And as we do that, we basically don't know, in essence, where we've come from. We don't know who we are.
Albert McLeod, a longtime human rights activist, spoke about the mental health of 2S LGBTQ+ individuals. He believes the homophobia and transphobia they experience is connected to colonialism.
I think fear in colonization, fear of loss of control by colonizers in the 21st century is really driving this anti-trans, anti-2S LGBTQ movement, and it's nostalgia for the past, and we can't go backward in our society. We can only go forward as a democratic society.
A 2023 report by the Trevor Project on mental health and well-being of Indigenous LGBTQ young people in the United States found that over half of Indigenous 2S LGBTQ+ youth reported seriously considering suicide in the past year. Nearly a quarter attempted suicide. New Brunswick, Saskatchewan, and Alberta have implemented policies restricting gender expression in schools for trans and gender-diverse youth. McLeod says there are ways to promote inclusion of Indigenous and Two-Spirit LGBTQ+ people within policymaking.
Create Two-Spirit specific governance models like councils that guide and advise and have, opportunities to promote policy, to promote, local legislation and just their ideas about health and healing and wellness and employment as well.
He adds that he values how forward-looking the conference is.
It's about reconciliation and decolonizing health. And, as Indigenous people across the Americas, we've done that for generations. Now it's time to actualize it and live it and experience it as we move into the future.
Sierra Buttons, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Still in Manitoba, one man is dead after a house fire on the Barons Land First Nation in the northern part of the province on Tuesday night. Barren Lands First Nation is a Cree community 900 kilometers north of Winnipeg and 320 kilometers northwest of Thompson, their closest service center. Thompson RCMP received a report of the fire at 11:15 p.m. Tuesday night. They were told 3 people were inside of the home and 1 was unaccounted for. The local fire department responded and were able to enter the home around 3:30 a.m. Wednesday morning. They found one male who was pronounced dead. The cause of the fire is under investigation. Barren Lands lost another person to a house fire earlier this year on New Year's Day. The federally owned Trans Mountain Pipeline has nearly completed its long-delayed and costly expansion. According to the company, the pipeline's final cost will be about $34 billion. In 2018, the federal government bought the pipeline for $4.5 billion, expecting the final price to complete it to be $7.4 billion. The expansion will nearly triple the amount of oil being sent from Alberta to the BC coast to be shipped in oil tankers for international markets. Final testing is ongoing with full operations beginning by Canada Day. 890,000 barrels of oil a day will be transported by the completed pipeline. Canada's Auditor General Karen Hogan released 2 reports this week, one on First Nations housing and another on First Nations and Inuit policing. To the surprise of no one, the federal government received failing grades in both investigations. For more, our Truth and Politics panel is here to discuss. Neegon Sinclair is a columnist with the Winnipeg Free Press. Jennifer Lewitz is a policy analyst with War Shield. Jennifer, Neegon, thanks for being with us. 2 Auditor General reports this week when it comes to First Nations and Inuit peoples. Jennifer, we keep getting the same message every time that First Nations people are living in third world housing conditions. Why haven't things improved?
I think a lot of bureaucracy. I had a chance to read the report, and to me, it sounds like we've just overinflated the bureaucracy now to the point where we don't even know what's going on at the ground because it's just a bunch of management happening in Ottawa. We're hearing about the overcrowding not getting better. The mold strategy that was implemented in 2008 is no longer being used, and there's no reason as to why. And that's just what happens when you create massive government. We have 2 Indigenous related departments now as of 2017, and it just sounds like Ottawa is having a hard time administering these programs on the ground when they just have big problems back in Ottawa.
Yeah, Neegon, 20 years, I believe they're saying it's been the same situation here. Is there a realistic solution?
In 2016, right after this Liberal government was voted in for the first time, they committed about $8 billion in the budget to First Nations housing infrastructure. Actually, all the things that the Kelowna Accord, Paul Martin's Kelowna Accord, had promised to do. That was not enough money, as the Assembly of First Nations has pointed out. You need upwards and near $14-15 billion to really deal with the issue of housing just alone, not all the other things. And so it just tells you that wasn't enough money to begin with. I completely concur with what Jennifer said in terms of this overinflation of government. But I also, in my glass half full way of seeing this, we're seeing a government that cares for the first time on this issue, that is trying to deal with this issue. And perhaps they bit off a lot more than they could chew.
Jennifer, the Auditor General also releasing a report on First Nations and Inuit policing, something that's been talked about a lot in the last few years. Money allocated to this not being spent. Your thoughts on the Auditor's policing report?
Well, we know that there's programs that the federal government has tried to administer, and the RCMP were not able to fill those positions. The actual First Nations policing legislation hasn't been tabled yet. I know we've heard that they've been doing consultation work with AFN, haven't seen that yet. The only thing that does concern me about the federal government now coming in after an 8-year tired government trying to bring on First Nations policing is that I just don't think they're equipped enough to handle it. And I just don't know what that's going to look like. You know, we've been seeing, last year we saw that chiefs in Ontario needed to take the government to court to get the money from public safety that was owed to them to continue funding this program. So I just don't think that you can bring on something as heavy as First Nations policing, underfund it, or not be prepared to deal with what that looks like, 5, 10, 15 years down the road.
All right. Niigaun, Auditor General Karen Hogan saying that the federal government and the RCMP's actions not aligned with building trust in First Nations. What's the solution there?
That's probably the most obvious statement you could possibly make. The fact is, policing is a crisis on First Nations, also urban Indigenous communities. There was a big report that was released about the downtown Winnipeg just this past week of the Police Accountability Coalition. The fact is that Indigenous communities at all levels are over-policed and under-resourced. And when I say over-policed, meaning they are not building those relationships, the kind of crisis situations that are talked about. The fact is this government's running out of time. We probably seen the last days of Justin Trudeau. Whether this has the kind of political willpower that it will take, the energy that it'll take, the things Jennifer are talking about, to build even more bureaucracy from just our first question, and they don't handle it particularly well. So I don't have a lot of faith. However, the national chief has made this a priority for her. So maybe there will be some movement because, as we all know, she has very deep Liberal ties.
Jennifer, Niigaun, we'll leave it there for this week. Appreciate you both taking the time for us.
Yeah, Milesh.
The Arctic Winter Games, one of my favorite sporting events, wrapped up last week. But for one would-be participant, it was a missed opportunity. That story and more after the break. Welcome back. The 2024 Arctic Winter Games wrapped up last week. And while it was a happy time for many, one athlete from the Yukon says living far from the territory's capital ultimately caused her to be released from her team. Here's Sarah Connors with more on that.
The Arctic Winter Games just wrapped up in Matsu, Alaska. Dene Games athlete Robin McLeod hoped to be there, but was forced to stay back.
It just really opened my eyes to how wrong this whole situation can be and is.
The Klecho Dene athlete is no stranger to the Arctic Winter Games. She previously competed in the Dene Games division and was excited to learn this year's games would include an open category for women over 18.
I have a lot of knowledge about these games. I love these games.
The 38-year-old mom of two lives in Ross River, a 5-hour drive from Whitehorse where practices are held. McLeod says she struggled to attend practices because of the distance, cost, and lack of access to childcare.
No, they told me that they wanted me to be at 70% of the practices. And I was like, okay. And I was like, well, I don't think I can do that. Like I don't make that much money. I'm an artist. I'm a low income, rural, Indigenous woman, like I'm here and I'm a mother and I'm living 5 hours away from, a city.
In February, she says she was released from the team for not making enough practices. McLeod appealed the decision and wrote an open letter detailing her frustrations to the Aboriginal Sports Circle, the sport governing body for Dene Games. But the organization says it conducted a review and stood by the decision, stating there was a lack of demonstrated commitment to the Dene Games team and the core values of Dene Games on your part.
They needed to, have more sensitivity to caregivers and mothers and parents who are, obviously having financial hardships.
McLeod would like to see the Aboriginal Sports Circle update its policies to be more inclusive for those living outside of Whitehorse.
I'm going to continue to be involved in these games, and it feels really, really bad to to know that I'm going to have to continuously fight this battle.
She still plans to try out for the 2026 Games in Whitehorse. The president of the board of directors for the Aboriginal Sports Circle declined to comment on specific athletes, though they did say the matter is now closed. A spokesperson for Yukon government, which provides funding for sport governing bodies, says there are a number of options athletes can access to cover travel expenses, including a territorial travel fund. Sarah Connors, APTN National News, Whitehorse.
Looking forward to seeing Robin at the 2026 Games. For the second year, the Jim Brady Medal of Excellence honors unsung heroes across Canada. Named after Métis activist James Brady, the medals honor those who continuously put others first without asking for recognition. Here's Rachel May with more.
Brady disappeared in 1967, leaving behind 5 children and an impressive legacy. Not only was Brady an accomplished photographer, veteran, and scholar, but he helped found both the Métis Nation of Alberta and Métis Nation Saskatchewan. James Brady's grandson, John Brady MacDonald, created this award with his aunt as a way to honor his grandfather's generous spirit. MacDonald said that despite the good that Brady had done during his lifetime, he was mainly recognized for those efforts after his disappearance, and he doesn't want that to happen to others. This year's recipients include Lorna and Eugene Arcand, who work with residential school survivors, and Isabella Kulak, who inspired National Ribbon Skirt Day. MacDonald said as long as people continue to do good, he will continue to celebrate those making the world a better place.
The most important thing is, we want people to understand that what they're doing is having a positive effect and is recognized and is being honored, and it's being honored while they're still here.
Time for another quick break. Still to come, we'll profile an Indigenous entrepreneur's cosmetic company. Stick around. Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. Deep in the heart of Winnipeg, the community of St. Boniface is where Crystal Sayer works as a letter carrier and encountered these deer during the first week of spring. Thanks, Crystal. Keep those pictures coming by emailing to share@aptn.ca for the chance to be our next photo of the day. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Starting on the East Coast, 0 with snow in Halifax, cloudy, and 0 in Fredericton. -2 and cloudy for Kuujjuaq, 2 below with snow in Nain. -1 in Montreal, 4 below for Val-d'Or. -2 with snow in Sault Ste. Marie, sunny and 3 below for Ottawa. -2 in Thunder Bay, sun's out and 10 below in Sioux Lookout. -13 with snow in God's Lake, 11 below and snow for Norway House. -7 in Winnipeg, -8 for Dauphin and Brandon. 5 below in Regina, -9 for Saskatoon. 7 below in Meadow Lake, sun's out and -11 for La Ronge. Over in northern Alberta, sunny, -10 for Fort Chip, sun's out and -6 in High Level. Cloudy and 6 below for Edmonton, -7 with flurries in Lethbridge. 13 above in Vancouver, 15 in Kamloops. +4 for Prince George, a sunny high of 7 in Smithers. -8 in Old Crow, +6 in Whitehorse. 16 below in Yellowknife, -7 in Norman Wells. -13 for Sax Harbor, 10 below in Paulatuk. -17 with flurries in Chesterfield, 26 below in Baker Lake. -29 for Resolute and Joe Haven. An Indigenous entrepreneur from Ontario who started a cosmetics company as a side hustle in her basement has now been able to take her company to new heights in just a short time, getting support from some of the biggest names in Hollywood. With more, APTN's Tina House joins us from Vancouver.
Thank you. We're so excited to be here today with the CEO of Cheekbone Beauty, Jen Harper. Jen, so nice to see you.
Nice to see you too.
Welcome to Vancouver. Tell me a little bit about your company and what you do.
Thank you. So Cheekbone Beauty is an Indigenous color cosmetic brand, which just means we're everything for lips, eyes, and face. And we're available at Sephora in Canada and JCPenney in the United States.
So incredible. Tell me, how did you get started in this journey of yours?
Well, it's a really long story, so I'll try to keep it super short, but I had a crazy literal dream, middle of the night, 3 native little girls covered in lip gloss, and all I remember is their giggling and laughter because they had made such a mess of themselves. I grabbed my laptop and started writing out what is the foundation of our brand to this day, and that was make a product, and at the time it was lip gloss, and use a portion of the profits to do something to support my Indigenous community. And so since then, we've been able to launch our scholarship fund in partnership with Inspire, and we've given out 16 scholarships so far, so we're really proud of that.
Wow, congratulations. That's huge. And yes, a lot of little girls are obviously watching your success and others, but I've seen some pretty big celebrities wearing your product. I've seen some things online. That's pretty exciting, isn't it?
Yes, very exciting. Most recently, we saw that Blake Lively was using them to get ready for the Super Bowl. We've had Lily Gladstone be wearing them all over her red carpet moments, from the Golden Globe win to being at the Oscars. Her makeup artist, Nick, has been amazing. And behind the scenes, he loves Cheekbone Beauty, thanks to Lily, because she introduced him to the brand. So talk about community supporting community.
Incredible. Now let's talk about the product itself. What can people expect and where can they get it?
Yeah, so we're really driven by this idea of humans and earth before profits, hence why we're a B Corp certified company. So we make things very thoughtfully. We think about our entire supply chain, making sure that things are ethically sourced, that we're building a company that is here for our employees and treats people very well. And then we also think about packaging, which unfortunately in the beauty space is notoriously known for waste. So we try to eliminate that by using refillables, and we're just actually featured in Elle with their waste issue in the beauty space, and so you can check out our refillable lipstick at Sephora in Canada.
Amazing. Sephora, did you ever imagine your product would be in a huge chain like that?
I think I dreamt about it and really hoped it would happen, and to be quite honest with you, I still get a little choked up every time I think about that we've actually made that happen. And it's not just me, of course. We have an incredible team at Cheekbone Beauty, and we have an incredible community behind us across this country, so it feels amazing.
Amazing. Well, we're very proud of your success, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Back to you in studio.
Thanks, Tina. Over to our Ottawa studio now. That's where Fraser Needham is standing by with a preview of our weekly political show.
Coming up after the news on Nation to Nation, Canada's Auditor General says the Trudeau government is failing to live up to its commitments when it comes to First Nations housing and First Nations and Inuit policing. The First Nations Chiefs of Police Association says it is mind-boggling the government is letting millions of dollars targeted for this area go unspent. And in spite of criticisms, the International Commission on Missing Persons says it is the right organization to be assisting in the search for unmarked graves on the sites of former residential schools. All this and more ahead.
Thanks, Fraser. Looks good as always. You can catch Nation to Nation right here in less than 2 minutes' time. We're all out of time for your APTN National News for this Thursday. For much more, you can visit our website. That's aptnnews.ca. I'm Dennis Ward, Marcy McGuitch. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you back here tomorrow.